Hey everybody, you're at Steve Morris Engines. I'm Steve Morris. This is a twofold deal. This is an engine that we just got done doing that nitrous engine conversion, because nitrous sucks, doing a nitrous engine conversion to ProCharge. So this is Ron Westner's out of New York, and he sent us this. It was a damaged, hurt nitrous motor, and so we've done our normal conversion. Normal conversion stuff is pistons, sometimes rods. This one did a piston rod, camshaft change, and some valve train stuff. And also converting from carbureted to EFI. So along with this intercooler intake manifold, this one was a Hogan's deal. We haven't yet gotten to putting doing a billet, our billet intake manifold with built-in intercooler. Haven't gotten there yet. I think we're going to. This is obviously a F2 reverse belt drive to fit in Ron's car, which is a 71 Nova. And since it's converted over from carburetor to EFI, which is pretty common, I'm also going to shoot the basics of how to get your Holley EFI down the track. The things you need to look at. So all the stuff that I'm training Ron on to get him up to speed of the things he needs to know from going from a carburetor to EFI, and how you do that, the things you look at, the things you don't touch, the things you don't have to worry about in the system. I'm going to shoot that video all in this part. So hang on, and we're going to show you a lot of cool stuff. Alrighty, let's take a look at the numbers. So I'll show you all this stuff, and what we're going to do, well, let's go through the numbers first. So I mean, this thing is pretty nice and pretty good here. And you're looking at 1761 at 7600 RPM, 1313 torque at 63. Nice broad curve, pretty good through there. Let's go look at boost and all the numbers. So we are at 22 pounds of boost, and the fuel pressure is good. Oil pressure up. It's about a quart short on oil right here. Now keep in mind too, just FYI, there is nothing's making the oil go backwards like it would going down the track. So this is a dyno issue, because the engine's just sitting there. Oil pans are designed for the engines to be accelerating forward, unless it's a circle track piece or something like that. But even those are still designed to have oil go backwards. So anyways, everything looks real good there. 22 pounds of boost. Really nice solid piece. Now, another thing I'll show you is we'll go in here and we're going to graph the difference, because we did run this engine without the bell to the bell. So I'll show you the difference of just bolting on the bell. And let's see here. We are at... Let me get all of our correct data up here, correct comparisons. And there you go. So you can see here, the blue line is our with bell, and the green line, exact same tune, nothing other than just bolting on our bell in the front of that thing. This thing went from 1642, the green line there, 1642 to 1761. And at that exact spot, it's actually raised up a little bit there, 1756. So 1756 to 1642, that's 114 horsepower increase just for that bell. Okay, so super good. I know Ron is super happy. Super happy? Oh yeah, party on. Okay, so now this is going to be pretty good because I think will be pretty good because what I'm going to do is we're now going to pretend that that just made a pass down track. We're just going to pretend that that was a pass that you just made. Okay. So I'm going to show you everything from exactly how you hook up, and then go right to looking at the data log to make sure everything is okay. Alrighty, so let's pretend we just made that dyno pull was a pass down the track. Now, always keep in mind, first and foremost, when we do a base tune here on the dyno, that's exactly what it is. Everything is we go through it. The tune is correct, but things change in the race car. So always go out, do a 60-foot pass, come back, look at your data. If everything looks correct, and I'll show you what we're going to be looking for, but always start out with a 60 foot, then go 330, then go 8th mile. Never, ever, ever go make a full pass right off the trailer. Unless you have a lot of data, unless you've already made full passes. But if it's brand new, doesn't matter if it's been dyno, doesn't matter what, just do a short pass. Just make sure everything's the same in the car as it is on the dyno. Okay? Even if we run it on the chassis dyno or hub dyno, it doesn't matter. The track changes, stuff. Take your time. No need to break stuff. Okay. So we just made a pass, and so now we have hooked up the computer. We've hooked up to the ECU. We've turned it on. You're going to go right to the Holly program. We're going to in version 6. We're going to do this. We're going to download an open log file. So what that does is that's downloading from the ECU and is opening up the log that it just took, which would be your last pass. Okay. All right. So now your log will look a little bit different, but one of the things that you're going to first change is this is the first thing that you're going to look at. You download your data log, but you're going to have to change some of these things over here because they're not going to be the same as it kind of brings over default information on your laptop. So you go up to this little drop down arrow right here. We're going to edit the views. So we edit our views, and we want what we really want to see. You can bring over anything you want to look at, but what I'm interested in is RPM, CPS, the coolant temperature. We'll bring over oil pressure, fuel pressure, even though we're using the dyno to measure that stuff here. So let me bring that over and I'll show you exactly how. So if you don't want to see something over here, you click it, drag it over into here, and it takes it away. If you want to see something like our oil pressure, left click, drag where you want it. Oil pressure. Fuel pressure, left click, drag where you want it. There you go. That thing that I just took off there was manifold air temperature, which we want to look at. Okay. So here is the pertinent information that we want to look at. We have the closed loop compensation, critical. Our AFR, boost, our timing, oil pressure, fuel pressure, air temperature if we're concerned about air temperature. Intercooled options only, really. Okay, so those are the big ones that we want to have. If you want to set up any channels over here, you do the exact same thing, name it whatever you want. If you have EGTs, if you want to look at anything else, a drive shaft curve, anything that you've plugged into this, that you've added. But these are the major engine stuff that I want to look at. Okay, so I've clicked and dragged them in there. Now we're going to just hit OK. And now they're there. So you see fuel pressure, oil pressure. Now it's defaulted because we don't have it hooked up through the Holly right now. It's hooked up through the engine dyno. Okay, so it brings up your graph. Now it's going to show you your TPS. I always like to have RPM first, then TPS second, so it choreographs the colors correctly. If you move them, the colors go in this order. So if you move it, if you move the TPS down to where the coolant temp is, it'll make TPS blue instead of green. All right. So let's pretend here that when you went wide open throttle, that was the moment you let go of the trans brake. Okay, because we can set a 0 time. So what we're going to do is we go up here to Tools, set 0 time, and I just did that wrong. Hold on, we gotta select our point. So right there, let's pretend wide open throttle, or actually let's pretend over here. Let's pretend you went to wide open throttle. It's on the 2-step, sitting there jerking around. You let go of the trans brake, and that can be a channel that you put over here as trans brake. So you can see exactly when you let go of the trans brake button. You move your cursor over to that line, go over to Tools, set 0, set 0. Now, our 0 time is right here, and you'll be able to track all of your launch control, timing controls, anything right off of 0 from when you let go of the trans brake. And you would be able to see your timing retard come out if you're taking timing out of it. You'll be able to see any of that stuff and change your data log, or I'm sorry, change your horsepower, launch, anything, boost. If it's a turbo car, you'll be able to change all your parameters based on your 0 time. Okay, now this is in a drag race form, not in a street or anything else, but in drag race only. So let's go over the major things you need to look at. We have up here our important stuff. We have our graph now. We see this green line is our TPS, which would be like going down the track. We're going to pretend that it was on the 2-step here. Now on the 2-step, the engine is obviously misfiring in order to keep it at RPM. So whatever the information says, it really doesn't matter because it's bogus. It's a bogus AFR. It's a bogus anything else. It's just, as long as it goes up on the 2-step and it's fine, don't worry about it. Everything's good. It's from when you let go of the trans brake button and all the and it's not misfiring any longer that we care about. So what we're going to look at here is the number one deal is we want to just verify, and when you go out and you do that 60 foot, we want to verify that nothing is more than 10% correction. So closed loop, the CL comp, means closed loop compensation. What that's doing is it is adding or subtracting fuel in order to meet the target AFR. So when I dyno this stuff, you're going to see all the way through here that it pretty much never changes anything more than 10. So like up here, it's at 0, 1. So real minimal amounts as we're scrolling across the screen. That basically, there might be some minor changes, and that's fine. But what we're always looking for is making sure that there's not major changes. If this thing, all of a sudden, you put it in the car, you go down track, and it's trying to correct 50%, there's something wrong. If it wasn't correcting 50% here on the dyno, it's not going to correct 50% at the track. It might correct 10. Maybe you'll have a little spot where there's 15 or something. No big deal, but it's not going to make big corrections. Okay, so here we already have this tuned. It's minor corrections. Looking at O2s, everything's looking good through there. If you want to change scaling, you can come up here because it can't run down that low. So if we go like 10, and then just click on it and change numbers there like that. Or, oops, did the wrong one. 0. There we go. 10. All right. Or we can go all the way down to 4. There we go. So you see how that moves those lines up. So depending on where you have this scaled is where it's going to read in the graph. Okay. So you can see the O2s are nice, flat, pretty parallel. Our O2 correction is nice, so there's no issues there. I'm going to rescale that again. Trying to get it lower. There we go. 9. There. Now I got those down at a lower point, so they're easier to see. So this was our closed loop correction. Nice and flat. If you click it right here, it turns it off, turns it on. Here's our AFR. We can see that everything is really nice, is doing it correctly. So it's very close to what it was on the engine dyno. Okay, so again, we're just pretending that we just made a pass. You can look at your max RPM. That was a 76.67. Then a chopped throttle. So you'll be able to see if you pedaled it and you didn't even know it. You know, sometimes we lift and we don't even know it. You'll see your TPS up here. Oh yeah, I lifted right here or whatever. I've done that several times where I didn't think I lifted, and I go back to the data log. It's like, oh, I guess I was a sissy right there and lifted. So, or whatever. But our main thing that we want to verify is that closed loop correction correct? Is it doing something weird? Is it doing something over 10%? It's always going to be doing something. So don't worry about that. Then we can look at your boost curves. Everything's looking good. We'd pretend we're looking at oil pressure, fuel pressure. Everything looks great. Cool. Now go out and go do a 330. Everything come back and everything looks good. It went down the track. Now go out and make an 1/8 mile. Everything looks good. You're good to go from there on out. Then you're going to be looking at data logs just to make sure everything looks good and is normal. And we can show you how to do a quick launch control. So let's minimize this. I will go over here. Oh, yep, let's show this thing real quick. So that would just open up your data log real quick. Now, when you, in the program, this little button up here that says USB link, when it says USB link, it is not live with the ECU. It's not live with the engine. When we click this, we come over here and it says it's all passed, everything is all good, and it switches to online. That means that it is directly communicating. If you make a change here, it makes a change out there in the engine. Okay, so these are our fuel tables. There is a misnomer if you have an engine dynoed and tuned, especially by me and maybe by other people, or chassis dyno, you're not tuning the engine. You're not tuning the engine in between passes. You're not doing anything like that. This does not change. Very, very minimally. And if it does, though, too, it's basically taking care of it. There is a lot you can do. You could overcomplicate this, and you could spend your every waking moment trying to make something perfect, but the next day or the next hour it's going to change and it's not going to be perfect anymore. It's just, that's the way the world works. So you can do a lot of stuff, but it's not necessary. So we go back down here and we just reopen up the program. So that fuel table, you're not going to change. The spark table, you're not going to have to change. You're not going to have to do anything in here. I've got it all set up already. So or if your tune is all done and you're already going down the track, you're not going to have to come in here and do this. The only thing you're really going to have to do is power management. Now, if you have turbo car, we're not covering a turbo car because that would be turbo boost management, and this obviously is not a turbo motor, it's a centrifugal. Not changing the boost curve, you're not doing anything with it. It is what it is unless you change pulleys. So the only thing that we're doing here for power management is timing. Now, how we do timing is we'll come over here to this little EFI box, which is a system. We need to be offline. So there's some things, you see how these are all highlighted now? You go online and some of these disappear. It will not let you make corrections live in certain parameters and certain stuff. So you have to do it this way. So go offline, USB link, go to basic IO, go to timing retard. And when you have this all set up, you'd set it up exactly like this. You'll turn on retard 1, activated input release. Input release is your trans brake. So you need to go through your wiring diagram and figure out, make sure you have everything wired properly so it does this correctly. But input release is trans brake. So when you let go of the trans brake, it starts the timer at 0. We can view our graph, and this is what your launch timing retard looks like. So if you want to put more power in it, you can, by doing this, this is the amount of timing out. So this is a timing retard. So we're taking, the bigger the number, the more timing goes out. The smaller the number, the less timing goes out. All right. So this particular one is, going to launch. You figure out what your launch RPM is, what you want your launch RPM at, and you can just set up a curve just to make sure it gets on track. So here, this thing is going to launch, and I'll show you that in a minute. It's going to launch, and as soon as it launches, you let go of the button, this thing's going to knock 16 degrees of timing out, and then have it all back in by 2.6 seconds. So that'll just keep you from knocking the tire off. Okay. Now, if that works great and everything looks good, and you want to go a little bit faster, just keep moving things down. Keep moving things down. Faster, faster, faster. You can manipulate this little curve any way you want. Now, when you make the change here, you need to send it to the ECU. So nothing is live right now. It's not in the ECU. When I've made the change that I want to make, I go up to USB link. It says, hey, there's a problem. There's a mismatch here. What do you want to do? Well, I know that I made a change, so I want to send it to the ECU. If I didn't make a change or I don't remember doing anything, then it's safer to get it from the ECU. So you watch these numbers here. I'll get from ECU, and it changed them back. So it just erases whatever is on the laptop. If you get from ECU, it erases laptop. If you send to ECU, it erases the ECU. Now, a couple other little things here. So just simple stuff that you're going to want to know. So that's our launch retard. If you want to change your launch RPM, same thing, USB link, the EFI box, ignition parameters. This is your main RPM rev limiter. Don't touch it. This is your rev limiter 1. This is your trans brake launch RPM. If you want to raise it up here, let's say 4,000. And if you are doing these little soft, or don't do a fuel only, that you can't do that. Spark only, whatever way you have it in there. Some of them will change your basic parameters. I normally do it in a soft, but always make sure that your low RPM off and your RPM on are very close. What happens here is if it's at 4,000, it goes up to 4,000 and it rev limits it all the way back down to 34.99. So it sits there and goes, it just sits there and oscillates 500 RPM. No freaking good. So what you want to do is you always want to have this thing within 10, so 39.90. So if it's 4,000 up here, it's 39.90. If it's 3,500, it's 34.90. You got to make it really close. Otherwise, whatever these two numbers are, it oscillates in between the two. Okay? So you raised your launch RPM. You did that. This would be it. You would then send it to ECU. We're all cool. Go make another pass and come back and look at your data. Huh? Oh, if you want, now this is saved in the ECU right now. If you just want to save them to the laptop so you know what you're doing. So we'll go over here, File, Save Global File As. Make sure that it's going in the right area, that's in a global file. Otherwise, it's hard to find sometimes. And we'll save this as test 1. Whatever you want to name it, so you can always go back and see it. Save. Just click yes. Now you'll also see that it changed it up here in the upper left-hand corner. So the name of it is correct in that upper left-hand corner. Just go ahead and resend it. Make sure everything's all looking the same. All the buttons were green. Everything's the same. So now everything is the same in the ECU as it is in the laptop, and it's saved on a file. So everything is all cool right there. All right. Now, one other thing that you always want to do, that is all the power management, all the tuning that you really need to do. If you need to do any more, I'm more than happy to help you. There's other videos online. If you needed to make a little change on the fuel table because it was correcting, it's really easy. But I'm not going to show you that, and this isn't a full-on tuning video. This is just how to get your car on track and use the software. What you need to know and what you don't need to know. Number one thing when you put it in the car also is we need to first verify that our timing is correct. So you're going to go over here. You're going to have everything hooked up to the car. You're going to be online. You go to this little arrow symbol right here. Drop down, enable static timing check. I always just set this at 30. So you set it at 30. Set. Now, let's also go over here first. This little bottom left-hand corner deal, this is live. This is all live information, what it's doing. We can also change what we're seeing here. So let's bring in, you can bring in anything you want to see live. Some things are useless to see, other things are important. This timing is actually something good to see right here. Click, drag, get rid of some of the stuff we don't care about. Okay. Now, like I said, this is live. So you see the timing right here that is, it says 30 because I set up our static timing check. Okay, now watch. When I clear it, we'll clear here. Watch down here. You clear. Now it says 15. It's 15 because if this static timing check is not enabled, timing is jumping all over the place depending on RPM. It depends on everything, but it will never be still. You'll never be able to check it unless you do this static time check. So when we set this, you set the static timing, it's 30. The only thing that matters in the world is that that engine right in there, that the dampener, you're going to check your timing now, and the timing pointer needs to point at 30. If it does not point at 30, adjust it a little bit and move your crank trigger. It might be, well, on this, because it's coil on plug and everything's all set up, it's going to be right. If it's not, there's something wrong. There's a wiring issue. But if you did have some minor variance in it, you can move that. But whatever the screen says right here is what it needs to say on the timing pointer, period. This is just a reference. And what you're doing is you're making sure that what the engine actually is what the computer thinks it is, because the computer is controlling the timing. Now, if you forget to turn this off, if you just close this, see it still says 30 down here, and you go make passes, it's probably going to burn it up because it no longer has timing control. So it's no longer going to take timing out for boost. It's no longer going to take timing out for anything. It's just locked. So always make sure that you come in here, our static timing check. After you've verified that the timing's right, you're never going to have to do this again. Clear it. Now it's back to our cranking timing because this cranks with 15 degrees of timing. We're all done. So that would be the first thing you do. You're going to check your timing, make sure that it's right, make sure all your stuff is good. You make sure it does a burnout, make sure it comes up on the trans brake, which if we dyno it here, everything should be fine. Go out and do your 60 foot, data log it, come back and look at it. Oh, I'm sorry. So to data log, another way to go look at that data log is if you've already have everything open, you need to be in USB link, because if it's online, we try to download the data log and it's grayed out. If you go back to the USB link, now you can download the data log. So it needs to be offline the data log. You open it up, it's right here. Now I like to, after you've downloaded the data log, just erase it. Otherwise it will save 10,000 logs. It always would be the bottom one, but it's just a hassle. So after you make a pass, download your data log, you can come back into it, you open it, and then just delete it. And then that way you only have one log every time you come back. Otherwise, you're just looking through a whole bunch of crap. Okay? So you need to be offline, download data log, do that. Now, in order to data log, we want to set up ECU data logging. You're going to do a normal data log. It's going to be triggered. You can do it in 50 frames per second, or you can do it 100 frames per second. It just increases your log size and is more accurate at 100 frames per second. Log time, I like to be at 20 seconds. You can make it 30 seconds. You can make it whatever. TPS is greater than 55%. I'll normally make that about 75%. Now, what this is doing is every time the pedal goes past 75%, it's going to take a data log. It don't matter if it's the engine's not running, it's going to take a data log. So every single time. So you don't have to be out there, some guy forgets to hit the button or some guy does this. Or you can do this totally self-contained on your own. It's automatically going to take a data log every time it goes past 75%. It's going to take a 20-second data log after 75%. So that's easy. That's all set up. We've set up showed you how to set up the channels that you want to look at in your data log right over here, and showed you the important stuff that you need to look at to make sure everything is safe and looking normal, and then showed you a little bit of tuning of how you're going to do launch power management. That is the basics of how you're going to get your fresh new EFI motor down the track, the things you need to know, a whole bunch of stuff you don't need to know. All these screens here, don't care, don't care, don't care, don't care. I have all that stuff all set up for you. If we need to make little changes, you can give me a call and we can go over some stuff. But that is the basics of everything you need to know to make this stuff work. Any other questions, Ron? Okay, I think that's for you. So that is a good setup. That should get everybody pretty much how to properly make your initial passes down track, initial setup, and what you need to know in order to tune. So I'm Steve Morris. Have a great day.